All right, so what we're doing here is moving from a fell seam into a regular seam. So a fell seam is that one that folds over. And this one, I think, was joining around here. So it does help to leave the cuffs on so you can double check yourself. But a fell seam is going to have this little mismatch, and then it's going to fold over. Fell is an old English word for fold. It's going to fold over, this is going to fold over, and there's going to be our seam. So the first thing to do while you're unpicking is to see what are the measurements. So there's our original join there. I think this was actually joined the other way. Do we not have? No, this is fine. Because usually this one is actually on the underside. But anyway, let's not confuse ourselves. Let me grab a pen. Here's our original join line, and let's check our measurements. Thank you so much, Alvin. So this smaller one, you can see is 0.5. And now from the join line to the longer one, if you get confused, you can just measure it on the other side. From that stitch to the outside, and we can see there, that's 1.5. See there, 1.5. So each one is going to be a little bit different. You can just double check as you go. 1.5. So let's add those two together. 5 plus 5 is 10. Carry that one over. 1 plus 1 is 2. So our total seam allowance is 2 centimeters between this one and this one. Now we need to divide that with 2. 2 divided by 2 is going to be 1 centimeter. So at the end of the day, if we pull these two together and we stitch 1 centimeter seam allowance, it's going to give us the same as if we had a fell seam with a half and a 1.5. Because that equals 2, and now we have 1 plus 1 is also going to equal 2. Okay, so let's just think about a seam allowance that was maybe a different measurement. Let's say here's our stitch line, here's our join line, and let's say this smaller one is maybe 1 centimeter, plus minus 1 centimeter. And this bigger one, from the stitch line to this bigger one, is now going to be 2 centimeters. Everyone is going to be different. You're just going to have to measure. At the end of the day, you take the small one, it's going to be 1, plus the big one, it's going to be 2. This gives you 3, and you divide that by 2. In this case, it's going to be 1.5. So this is your new seam allowance if you put the two edges together and you don't do this mismatch. So you just take the small one plus the big one, divided by 2, and you go from there. So obviously, like here, if we're now doing this alteration, so in this case, we decided our seam is now, our new seam is 1 centimeter. So here at 0, that means your seam allowance is 1 centimeter. Here at 1, it means the seam allowance, the original is 1, now we're doing an alteration of 1, so the whole thing is 2 centimeters, all the way down to 2 centimeters. Here also, we've got a 1.5 alteration, so your new seam allowance is 1 centimeter, less with 1.5, so the whole thing is 2.5. And here back to 1, that's back to 1 centimeter seam allowance, and then 1 centimeter seam allowance all the way. I'm sure that is going to be fashion.